Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of On the Mic with Mike. I'm your host, Mike Larkin, and joining me tonight, she is adult star, she is content creator, and a hell of a one at that, the one, the only Miss Addyson James. How are you?
I am fantastic. How are you, Michael?
It is a pleasure. It is a privilege. I will say this. I've seen a lot of your work. There's a lot of stuff to get into. And I got to say, one of the ones that you've actually done is a personal favorite of mine, because I remember as a teenager, even looking at my first sex teacher, even the overall teacher side of things. So I look forward to diving into that, but I'm good. I look at the adult entertainment industry as a whole. It's an art form, much like anything in life. So I always say this, life is an art form. We're all applying our crafts. So at the end of the day, we're just painting our canvases, right?
That's right.
Absolutely. And I will say this, you have painted your canvas beautifully and masterfully. I have to ask about the transition here because, first of all, much love, much respect, and thank you for what you do. USN veteran over here, doing your thing. So I'm kind of curious, how does USN veteran, badassery, noble, very courage, everything from just everything that goes into your being and what you've done for us, and then the transition to the adult entertainment industry, how did that come into fruition in the gravitational pull? Because I think that's awesome. It shows you're very multifaceted, and it just shows the fun that you exude and accentuate.
So actually, I was an esthetician and laser technician for 21 years after I got out of the Navy. So that
Wow.
was my first career.
Okay.
So I did that. And then I've been in the adult industry. It'll be 2 years in July. And, I was in the swinging community. I'm still in the swinging community. I just don't sexually participate anymore. But, for about 15 years. So I was never afraid of the sex or this and that. It was more about being on the internet. And a company in Arizona reached out to me every year for 3 years on what I call my work vanilla Instagram from being an esthetician laser tech. They shoot first timers. They wanted to know if I wanted to shoot. I was very interested, but again, I wasn't prepared for what may happen for being on the internet. So I declined for 3 years or 2 years. Year 3, I finally said, you know what? I am 42 years old, 43 years old, whatever I was at the time. I said, whatever happens, happens. Like, I'm just going to live my life. And I did it. And I have to tell you, it was one of the most empowering days that I've ever had. I remember coming home that night, just so excited and kind of overwhelmed with feelings in the sense of like, that went not even close to how I thought it was going to be. It was a million times better, and the amount of respect and the consideration and all the things. And then from there, it was really, whatever happens, happens. They hired me 4 more times. And then I, worked independently and worked with some other small companies until my first AVNs when I picked up my first agent.
I look at it like this, and you bring the smile, and even know that you bring the esthetician vibes in this, because I've seen that line of work as well. That's a very important job in its own right, much like with anyone out here making their money and putting their hard work into it. I like how you mentioned how you finally get into it after years upon years, and you talk about being in your 40s, which I got to say, you represent, like all women, the RDSA, as I say, the real deal sex appeal, so to speak. And then you get to exude and accentuate that on camera. And I like how you also use the word empowerment, because a lot of people don't even realize, like, it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of confidence to do it, because there are some people, whether they go from camming and modeling, then you go into the adult entertainment industry, it's that confidence thing. It's like, okay, how are people going to perceive me while I'm naked on camera? Because, everybody has their different type and preferences. But I also think at the end of the day too, and I'm sure you can agree with me on this, we become more normalized with how we view stuff like this, because at the end of the day, what was once taboo, we're now normalized with the addition of the OnlyFans, many vids, the loyal fans, and everything. We're in such a society today where everything's so normalized, and really everybody can express themselves internally and externally, and that's what makes it beautiful at the end of the day.
I totally agree. I think I was really at a point in my life where I didn't care what anyone else thought of what I was going to do. At the end of the day, I'm a single female. I don't have any children. I don't have a husband, boyfriend, didn't have any of those things. So it really just mattered how I felt about it. And I went into that with full confidence of, I will accept whatever happens going forward, whether I lose some friends or I lose some family or whatever that may look like. And I was blessed enough to, really not lose anyone per se, maybe a friend here and there. And we're still friends. They're just a little more standoffish. But, I know there's a lot of people who come into this industry and they lose their whole families and things like that. And I think that's so sad, and I really feel for them because, they're doing something they love and that they want to be doing, and they don't have the support.
See, I've had a similar situation. I'll explain this. It even happens with podcasters because I love my family to death. And I will say this, I was raised Catholic, and I'm thankful each and every day that God has given me his blessings. And I say this to you. You and yourself are a blessing, as each and every one of this who listens to this show. I look at it like this, Addison, because at the end of the day, you're not hurting anyone. But number two, I've always looked at it like this. If I want to interview an adult star who's done porn or content creation, and people ask, well, why do you do that? I go, well, why not? Why not do something that you love? Why not do something that you're passionate about, that you invest your time and everything in your heart and soul into, and just go for it? We've even realized this. I just turned 33 last month, and I've always realized this, even in my 30s, as I get older with each and every passing year, you have to stop. And I put this into the bluntest of terms. You have to have that DGAF type of attitude. You don't give a fuck, because at the end of the day, as long as you're happy and you're not hurting anyone, that's the main thing. And I think with what you're doing with your career, it builds connection, it builds a foundation, it builds the overall, dare I say, the accoutrement, if you will, of who you are. So if that accessorizes and adds that aesthetic to it, then you're golden, man.
Absolutely. And, and I loved my 21-year career of being an esthetician and laser tech. I love skincare. I still love it. But I was tired of building businesses for other people. And that's what I did. I built businesses for other people to become really, really successful. And obviously I became successful, but at the end of the day, those businesses didn't belong to me. And I could be fired or let go at any time. And all that work that I had put in was left to them. And I really wanted to do something where, yes, when we shoot pro scenes, yes, we're making those people money, but I've got all the other things, and I use that as a marketing tool to promote myself for my own online business. And that's really where the money is.
Absolutely. And I think the way you promote yourself, not only is it beautifully, but also at the end of the day, too, we have so many different technological advantages that we didn't have back in the day. We have so many outlets now. And I think in today's day and age, and I've always equated to, like, look at the 80s, right? Look at it from the pop culture side. The late, great George Michael once had a song in 1987, ladies and gentlemen. It's called I Want Your Sex. Sex is natural. Sex is fun. Sex is best when it's one-on-one. One of the most iconic songs ever, showcases that sexuality and showcases what love is really about. And we see it in many of our surroundings that are influencing us, whether it be music, pop culture, movies, what have you, even the people that we interact with each and every single day. If you add that to it, it's beautiful, but also at the same time, too, you know what you want, you know your worth. And I think the DIY mentality of do it yourself really does apply in everything that you do. It
does, and like you said, the stars from the 80s and 90s, they didn't have the things that we have access to today. They didn't have OnlyFans. They didn't have many vids and things like that. If they were smart enough and kept recordings of all their stuff, then they're really lucky because they can transfer that all in. But a lot of people never did that. And, the saying is content is king. That can be sold once you make it, that can be sold for the rest of your life and you can make residual on it. People, for pro scenes, I get paid a one-time fee. Those companies can sell that forever and ever, and they'll make millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars off those particular scenes for the rest of the time that business is showing them. And I don't see that money. So I think the way that technology has changed and the industry has changed is really more beneficial for the performer these days.
I'll agree. And I've always been enamored with the fact is one of the examples that I use. I know I'm taking everybody back with this, but it also equates to how we've evolved and revolved as people. I look at it like this. In the 90s, we used to have like the Babe of the Years and the Internet of the Years. And every time you see doggone Pam Anderson and Gemma Jameson all over the place. And that's great. It's wonderful. And I think we has the also pageantry and elegance that goes into it. Because I think even if I associate that word with porn, people look at you like, but I'm like, no, there's actually a discipline. There's pageantry. There's elegance that goes into award shows like the AVNs, the X-Biz and Exotica. And everybody doesn't realize that because they see when you look at porn, it's just like, okay, they're having sex. But it's like, whoa, slow it down, my friend. There's presentation, there's lighting, there's everything that goes into a scene. And people don't see the overall aesthetics that really go into it and really see the job and the overall grind, pun intended, but also, so to speak, the grind that goes into anything that you do. It's very, very much. A lot of people don't see that from the visualization side of things.
Yeah. I sometimes work 7 days a week, because I'm always replying to emails or, whatever it is. And, in the beginning, I was told, make sure you take care of yourself. Don't get yourself run down because it can happen very easily in this business. Make sure you take time for yourself. So I oftentimes have to remind myself, you know what? put your phones down, go for a walk, go do something away from technology, and just enjoy the moment. And but we're always we're so afraid, oh, we're going to miss out on something, we're going to miss this text from or a chatting session or something, this and that. But you know what, money comes and goes in life, and it's the same thing with this. I think to have longevity in this business, you have to take care of yourself mentally and physically. People think, we go on set and we just have sex, right? Oh, that's easy enough. Except for the sex is the last part of the day, when we've already had a 7-hour day doing the lines and everything else. And that's only 30 minutes of the scene. So that's really the last thing that comes into play. And I would say the easiest part. Since I started, I've shot with several companies more than once. And actually, I was with Nubiles yesterday shooting. And he said this to me last time he saw me a couple months ago, but he said it again. He goes, your acting just keeps getting better and better. And that's what I'm constantly trying to do, is just improve on every performance. And so I take that feedback very seriously, because I really want to bring my fans, the best of me. And if I can pick up, some pointers from other people, I'm all about it.
First and foremost, this one hits me at the heartstrings, y'all, ladies and gentlemen. This one, talk about the mental health and everything. I love your style on that, because it's so important. I mean, yes, the overall phone adage, so what we have now, it's very important for the technological side, but y'all need to step away from social media, needs to have that healing to go out and do your thing. I love that message. But also look at it from a stance like this, and you said it so beautifully and eloquently as well. It's like when you're constantly in front of a camera, you've shot with a certain company, or you're learning, you never stop learning, you adapt and you grow as people, especially in any industry. But I look at it like this: it's subtleties, it's intricacies and nuances that go into your performance. Like you could add that little subtlety, like a little lick in there, something like that minuscule in a scene that makes it hot, that makes it sensual, that makes it raw and passionate. And I can say within your films, you certainly, with what we see on camera, really translate. And you definitely shows that you're having a good time. It shows that overall, dare I say, exuberance, if you will, and vibrancy. And that's key with anything, that people have that gravitational pull to pull into.
Yeah. And I want to be really honest about something. I mean, I absolutely love what I do. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it. Or if I was getting tired of it and needed to change, I would change directions, which, I did with my other career. But believe it or not, there are a lot of people in this industry who are in this industry and they do not like what they do.
Right.
But they don't feel like they have any other options to go do anything else, because they're blasted all over the internet. My heart also goes out to those people, because there is so much more that they could do, if they really wanted to challenge themselves. I don't believe just because you go into porn that this is the end all be all of the rest of your life. I don't. The world is a lot more accepting these days, so a message for, those ladies and gentlemen out there who are doing this, who don't necessarily love it, but they kind of feel stuck. You can do more than what you're doing. And if you don't like this, don't do it, because you can see it on camera. You need to do what makes you happy, and what fills your cup up, per se.
Oh, absolutely. I look at it like this too as well. I think what I mentioned earlier to you, and I'll say this to you right here live on the show here, folks, it's multifacetedness, and I appreciate that, because you transition so well. And I look at people in today's day and age, and I always say this: if you don't love what you're doing, then don't do it, number one. But number two, everybody finds their passion light. Everybody finds their overall, dare I say, je ne sais quoi, and they find what their passion, they put their heart and soul to it, like you mentioned, Philip the Cup. So, I mean, I look at it like this: porn is not the be-all, end-all, but us at the end of the day, too. I look at it like this, y'all. If y'all can adapt and grow and even go into something else, the world is your oyster, as they say, and there's so much out there for you to learn and adapt and get into.
Absolutely. And porn people, because people like to lump us together, porn people, content creators, that
Right.
whole group of us. We're really smart people. I mean, I graduated with my college degree last year, in my 40s. And there's so many of us that have degrees that came from nursing or from this or from that, and had, major careers. And there's a lot of really smart people in porn. So it's not just people who had no other avenues to go. We just changed directions. So, don't think that all of us are just, stupid blondes or anything like that. We're actually really smart business people.
It's like that cartoon, and this is me showing my age and my 90s kid here. It's like that SpongeBob SquarePants episode Patrick Star gets hit with the coconut and he goes, "You're welcome." We're not like that. And I look at it like that too, because that is the one thing that always irks, dare I say, grinds my gears, to quote Family Guy. It's the fact that people automatically think that the intelligence level is at an all-time low when it comes to people who do porn, because, oh, they can't do anything else. They must not be very smart. No, people like yourself have degrees, people have degrees, and people have that street smarts and book smarts that they can do anything, but it's how you carry yourself. And I think you can concur with me on this, Miss James. It's all about being the best representation of your presentation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like anything, I think there's people in this business who get looked upon differently than some other people. And I think, like you just said, your presentation, how are you presenting yourself to the world? Are you presenting yourself as the girl that just wants the biggest dildos in her ass all the time? You're going to be perceived that way. You're going to be perceived very different than, say, someone like me, who I do one anal scene a month, and I like to keep my stuff classier. That's not a judgment on anybody, to each their own. But, you have to build your business. And if you want to be perceived a certain way, then that's what you need to be doing. Else you'll be perceived differently. And that will probably stick with you for a while.
Right. And I also look at it from a stance like this, and how we've evolved as people. It's like how we all change and how we look, and that we watching our preferences. Like, I remember my first time when I was a kid, and like when you get to that age, you know what I'm saying, hormones kick in, your early teens, sort of, or your mid-teens. Like, I remember my first ever scene I ever saw was oh my goodness gracious, it was girlshuntinggirls.com back in the day, which was a site where it was the girls, they were in the van, then they pick up a girl, they would have one-on-one scenes or three ways, what have you. So we go from plots like that to where we are now. And I think the best way I can sum it up is there's a variety for everything. And I also look at it like this: porn in itself, or adult content, has the storytelling where you can be creative with it and let those creative juices flow in. It could start here. We can go from point A, from point B to point C, or some people are just into it because they just want to watch amazing people have sex. There's such as a variety, but people don't even realize like the story that really makes the creative juices flow in to get into said scene.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of creativity in this business, and that makes it really fun.
I got to ask, so to follow up with that, how about you? Like, I look at it from a stance too as well. If you could tell a damn good story, much like you do on camera and many of the people that you work with, we talk about the synergy there. How important is it to the storytelling side of things to really encompass and really accentuate that film?
It's important. Every company has kind of a different storyline as far as, their genre that they go with, whether it's, the stepmom genre or the MILF who likes BBCs, whatever it is. But the storyline's really important. That's what really brings it all together. So I think storyline is very important. But then, for me, and, in my collabs, I don't do a lot of storyline. For me, in my everyday life and in my collabs, I just do what we, just gonzo sex. I rarely have a storyline, because that's what I like to put out, to my fans. But when I'm shooting studio, I think the storyline is really important, and there's a lot of great ones out there. Some can be a little more serious, some are just downright hilarious, and you're like, there's no way that would ever happen. They're just so off the wall, but they're fun.
Absolutely. And I always make this example. I know this is my nerdiness showing here, but if you look at Zach and Mary Make a Porno, where they're trying to save their coffee shop from closing down, you see that raw scene with Seth Rogen as Elizabeth Banks. It showcases their love over the years. And then where they're filming their scene, it's very passionate, it's very raw, and it's very sensual. It shows the love between them. And then there's other sides, which we can kind of equate to the Gonzo, where it's just like, okay, you and you, boom, let's collab and do it. And see this wild spontaneity, so to speak. So I always use that as an example, because yes, the comedy side of things, but also number two, it really encompasses the really different styles of what makes an adult film an actual adult film.
Absolutely.
And I will say this, ma'am, over here. Let's talk about, I mentioned my first sex teacher earlier. My goodness gracious, a site that I had frequented in my teen years, probably around 05, 06, where you're looking at the likes of like Chelsea Zinn, the Ava Devines, and so many people that came from that era, and you being a part of that great collection here. Let's talk about my first sex teacher, because my God, looking at a woman like yourself and looking at everything that encompasses with that said story, I would not want to leave school. My goodness gracious, what a hot scene you had, man.
That was a fantastic scene. Believe it or not, that was my first school teacher scene I've ever done. And that was for, it's under the Naughty America umbrella. And that one, it's all ad-libbed script, so here's the premise. And then we just went with the flow. And my co-partner, talent, Nate Nasty, he's just fantastic. And we had great chemistry, and that was also, again, a little quirky and weird because, school teachers getting naked, but what a great fantasy. I mean, what guy hasn't had that fantasy? Or what girl, girls, I'm sure we've fantasized about male teachers in our, in our lives too. So it was so fun to do. So thank you so much for the compliments.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's like Mariah Carey once sang in 1995 with ODB, that sweet, sweet fantasy baby, so to speak. I mean, I look at it like this. Everybody fantasizes about it. I'll tell you straight up and down, like 6 o'clock. I don't know where this teacher is, but I remember when I was my senior year in high school, right? I had an applied chem teacher. Her name was Miss Carpenter. Always wore very beautiful, elegant dresses. Very beautiful woman, by the way. And then I always noticed, like, when she would walk by, the woman had a rose on, like a tattoo on her ankle. Beautiful rose. Absolutely encompassed it. So I got to say, as a student, when you're walking by and the pen's right here, as you can imagine, on the desk, and then you just drop it and then boom, just to get a quick look, just because we're guys and we're in high school and we're so it happens. But no, I'm guilty of that myself, because I just remember the stuff that sticks out, besides the fact that she was a cool ass person, she had a badass tattoo, and she was beautiful. Stuff like that really encompasses it. So we've all had that fantasy.
Absolutely.
And I look at it like this as well. You mentioned the Not America side of things and everything that you got. I've seen a lot of the great stuff that you've done as well. I look at it like this. You look at the Scarlett Benzes, you look at the Carissa Coxes, and you have had beautiful stuff with them. You really, everyone, these are just examples that really step in. Like, for example, we go from the dark chocolates and so many things. Like, you can be wearing a Hooters attire, for God's sake, and looking as fine as wine. It's stuff like that really, really just stands out, and stuff like that I love. So I got to give you kudos once more, because every minute and every moment of that time really did showcase you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm ready to do more school teacher stuff. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And I mean, those women that I just mentioned, how awesome is it to see just their evolution? I know a lot of these people that you've worked with AVNs and Exoticas and XBiz. How important is those like award shows? Because we talk about the preferences and everybody really lining up, but we mentioned it's a community, man. The Exoticas and everything. The community has really become so big and so diverse. It's amazing to see.
It has, and the community can be really, really great, and you meet a lot of people. And I learned so much from everyone. So I encourage everyone to use the community to their advantage, to make those connections with different people, and shooting with different people, and keeping things fresh on your platforms, things like that is great as well. But it's nice to see, everyone continue to excel in this industry. And, that's really what we're all here for.
I mean, I look at a woman like yourself, too, with how you excel. I mean, you mentioned BBC earlier. I mentioned the guys like Doc Chocolate. I mean, the interracial stuff really does, and I think it incorporates a lot, too, as well, just because we show the interracial side, which has become a big category, much like any different type of preference. I think really accentuating that is great as well, because it gets to show, dare I say, the united, not divided side, and it really gets to show society of all of us coming together, so to speak, as people, and I think that really adds a nice little empowering element to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to stress a couple things just for the fans. We are humans, we are humans. We're not just a sex toy, or, however you may perceive us, but we are humans. And, we'll get messages on Twitter and things like that. Collab with this person, or collab with this person, or why don't you do this? We each are individuals, and we choose the people we want to collab with. And if we're not collabing with someone, that you want us to, it might be because just the timing hasn't been right. We haven't been in the same location at the same time. But I definitely love to hear from my fans if there's someone specific they want to see me shoot with. As far as pro stuff, I have no control over who I get to shoot with pro, because somebody did ask me that. That is all up to the companies. I show up, and then, my partner show up, and we do the scene. I wish there was a little bit more control over who you got to shoot with, just because there's so many people out there I still want to shoot with pro-wise that I haven't had the opportunity to. But yeah, just keep in mind that we are human, and we're not robots, and we definitely, we want to do things for our fans and make our fans happy, but with that comes respect.
Man, and here's where I smile once more because you said a lot of not only great things and very truthful and bluntly and honest things, but I
Mhm.
always looked at it like this. It also brings back a core memory when I first got started doing the podcasting side of things and interviewing great women like this one over here, ladies and gentlemen. I look at it like this. People would often ask me, it's like, Mike, how does that go? This is one of my friends, and he's still my friend to this day, and I love him to death, but sometimes they're a little stu-nod, and they say things that just make you go, but I look at it like this. He asked me one time in my career, he goes, Mike, how do you do that? How do you do an interview with an adult star or content creator? And I'm like, much as like I do with anything, because it's like, how do you ask these questions? I'm like, in a respectful manner, because at
Sure.
the end of the day, it's a job, it's a business, it's a brand, it's promotion. Like, you don't just go into there and say, hey, gangbangs. No, you start from scratch to how we go from point A to point B to point Z and let it
Yeah,
flow, have a fun conversation. It's not just like boom, you know what I'm saying? Like you mentioned, you're people too, you're human beings, but also at the end of the day, it's not like the DMs are an open invitation to just like, send dick pics and dicks galore. It's
right.
a respectful message and everything.
Yep. And I'll say the same thing goes to new male content creators.
Right.
Don't DM me with a, hey girl, you want to collab? Or hey beautiful, you want to collab? No, you send me that. I'm going to say, no, I don't want to collab. One, I know nothing about you. You didn't introduce yourself. You didn't give me your name. You didn't give me your location. Yes, I can look at your Twitter or Instagram account, and I certainly will. But what I appreciate is someone who takes the time to give me at least a paragraph of asking me to collab. I mean, do you even know me? And that's okay if you don't, but I like that. That's the kind of, DM that I like to get. And I'm like, oh, this person was very thoughtful in coming to me and asking me if I'd like to collab, and then from there, we can correspond back and forth. But these, and I think it's, the young guys get super excited, which I understand, but there is a right way and a wrong way to approach other performers. And I'm here to tell you, sending a DM just saying, hey, want to collab? Or sending a DM with your dick pic, I mean, that's going to get you blocked. I see enough dicks. I don't need to see anyone's dicks in my DMs. I don't care if you're big, small, in between, or don't even have a penis. I don't care. Just send me a message that's respectful, and I will gladly reply to you.
I gotta say, I love the rant. Like you just topped exactly what I did, but it's so true. I mean, I look at it like this. First of all, I don't mean to laugh at "Hey Girl," but that sounds like an opening line of some song, like "Hey Girl," like you know what
Yeah.
I mean? But like you don't like start it off like that, and I'm starting to sound like my father here. And Dad, I love you, but I look at it like no, my dad was big into that too because when he's been a manager for years and he worked in the managerial role for years, right? He was a regional manager, and he would go to me and we would talk about our respective jobs, and he goes, I hate it when they write me hey, because it's like, how about a hello? Or like, don't even go hi, like hello, not don't write me hey, because
Right.
it's like you don't start off a message for a business with hey, like hey girl or hey beautiful or what have you.
Yeah.
It's the youngins nowadays where it's just like social media, this is how they're rage and how they're encompassed with society. And it's just like, hey, what up? It's not like, hey ma, what's up? We gonna get it crunk. And now it's like, no, put some respect to it. Put some little
Yes.
something to it, like sentence, commas, punctuation, if you will.
Yes, yes. And and this is the other thing that some people might not know. They don't teach you, when you get into porn, they don't teach you much. Meaning they don't teach you how to properly send a DM to another creator or performer or anything like that, So that's why I go back and I, so to speak, kind of school these guys a little bit. Hey, this is the way that you should approach a content creator or a performer, that where you might get a better answer. And I've literally written out the whole thing and send it to them. I was like, take pieces of this or whatever, but the approach you just used, I can promise you, is not going to get you anyone that's going to want to collab with you. So I also kind of find, and I find that if there's a moment where I can teach somebody to do something better that's going to help them, then I'm happy to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I look at it like this, and it's one of those things where I always use the two S's, safe and spectacular. Apply your craft in safe fashion and spectacular fashion. Like the importance of testing goes a long way because, I
Mm,
mean, at the end of the day, too, you want to keep each other safe. You want to keep everybody spectacular. But at the end of the day, too, you have to have that testing requirement because it goes both ways in everything.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, testing is such a big deal. And, people always ask me, they're like, oh, but you're with so many different people and yet, and yeah, aren't you scared? And I say, this is what I say to that. I feel safer being in the porn community, content creation community, all of the above, than in having sexual relations with one of those people in a collab because we're tested and we look at those tests versus going out to a bar and having a one night stand with a guy at a bar that I've never met before. That is way more dangerous, and more than likely you could catch something. You know, I think porn, with the way that the testing is done and it's so stringent, they've really done a good job at keeping people safe.
All right. I mean, it's not like, and I'll use some bar movie analogies here. It's not like Urban Cowboy or Roadhouse or, dare I say, Coyote Ugly, if you will, where like stuff like that goes. It's like, no, it's just like at the end of the day, too. All right, we'll use the Coyote Ugly reference. Like when Piper Perabo and all the girls are there dancing, and then you hear Leanne Rimes can't fight the moonlight in the background, and they're dancing to everything. Like, those girls are not like having one night stands and going out with the bar. You know what I'm saying? That's their job, because they're giving you a show that goes along with the environment that they're in. It's not like they're easy. It's a part of the show. So at the end of the day, it's the show. It's the extravagance, if you will.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. But I look at it like this with you. We mentioned another James here. I got to say, you and Abby James. My goodness gracious. Let's put this over to the forefront, man. You two have scenes together. Two beautiful women. It really does show between the two of you. Got to give Abby a shout out. Talk about it, man, because my God, c'est magnifique.
Abby is so funny. I adore her. You know, she's from Tampa. She's actually in LA right now. I'll see her when I get back next week, but I saw her last week. And, you know, she is a bundle of energy. You know, she just goes all in, and, you know, she is a riot, and I absolutely adore her. We've become very good friends. And, you know, the scene that we did with Donnie and Isaiah Maxwell was so fun. So I love working with Abby. She's really great. And, yeah, she's a good one. And we, you know, she has nicknamed us the James Girls. So when we're together, it's the James Girls.
All right. Now, I mean, you all certainly set up with that moniker. It definitely applies very much so. And I mean, the two of you, again, she's another one that is also, dare I say, and I'll put you both into this category here. Y'all are some dynamos, man, when it comes to what we get to see on camera and all the screen and everything with your personality. So it definitely clicks, and I can't wait to see more of your guys' stuff together.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And I'm going to say this first and foremost as well. I do have a couple final questions, because we mentioned and we gave a shout out to all these great people. We mentioned this one over here. I got to say, Hooters, as someone who's been to Hooters in their lifetime, you can rock a Hooters attire, man. Let's put them to the forefront. We mentioned school teachers and how we've seen in popular culture the Britney Spears with the Baby One More Time, the schoolgirl tile, and the overall images and aesthetics. I got to say, man, you can rock a Hooters attire very, very well.
So I was a Hooters girl in my life. I actually, we had a Hoot. I'm originally from Vermont. Okay. And when I got out of the military, they were opening a Hooters, and I auditioned and, you know, all the things for whatever. And I got to be one of the opening waitresses, which was awesome. So I was a Hooters girl at one time in my life, and that was really fun. I remember when I was in the Navy, being in California, there was Hooters everywhere. And I was like, what a fun job. That would be so fun. I would love to do that one day. So obviously when they were opening one, I was like, I have to do this. And yeah, that was a really good time. So it was fun to play that role.
First and foremost, can we just add the layers here? Because military, esthetician, Hooters, the adult entertainment industry.
Let's add, grew up on a dairy farm. Delivered jobs with my bare hands, like shoveled shit, feeding baby calves, covered in cow shit. Happier than I've ever been in my life is when I'm out on the farm with the animals, playing in the shit and mud and hay and all the stuff. That's how I grew up.
You are very much what I like to call an around-the-way girl, to quote the great LL Cool J. My goodness gracious. I love that, first and foremost. Again, I think you can concur with me with everything that you've been through within your life, especially on the farm. It's a lot of discipline, and there's a lot of hard work that really makes you and shapes you into the person that you are.
Absolutely. And then, you know, I tell everyone, you know, that's a great way to grow up, but it's not easy. You know, there is a lot of discipline and things like that. And then, of course, you know, I wanted out of Vermont. So I joined the military. So I'd be able to travel and things like that. And obviously I got my dose of discipline there too. And, you know, I was in for 5 years. And I'm very grateful for that time that I spent in the military. You know, when I first signed up, I remember my first day showing up to my squadron, and they said, oh, we're all gonna watch a helicopter today. So I want you to climb up. And I was like, what? And I remember I literally started crying because I was like, what did I sign up for? Like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I was so confused. I was just like, what is going on? And, but I think back, I still have amazing friends to this day that, like, we don't talk every day, things like that. But I know that I could call them and they're going to answer the phone, and, you know, we just kind of pick up where we left off. And that camaraderie is absolutely amazing. And, you know, the things I learned in the military and the places that I've been to, you know, I wouldn't have gotten to go to if I wasn't in the military, you know. So I'm very grateful for that. And, being able to serve our country.
God bless America and God bless you for all you've done for our country, ma'am. So we thank you for that. And I say, with everything that you've done, I think you have showed nothing but grace, poise, and just overall respect and discipline and professionalism to your craft. And I can't wait to see what the future holds for you for many different events, like we mentioned, AVN and everything, man. I think your star is just going to continue to shine bright, my friend.
Well, thank you. You know, that is, like I said, it's my goal to just continue to grow and get better, and really just continue to evolve into, who Addison James really can be, And I think she's, from, again, it will be 2 years in July, but I think from the time we started to now, she's come a long way, and I'm really happy with her.
Absolutely. And I think it shows badassery, dynamo, and like we mentioned, real deal sex appeal before. It adds a lot of layers and aesthetics to your character. And that is a beautiful, beautiful thing, ladies and gentlemen. And I got to say, a couple final questions here before we close this thing out. You have been an absolute joy and a beautiful and absolute vibrancy to this fine program. I'd love to have you back on for a round two. I appreciate your time tonight.
Yes, I would love to come back. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. And I always love asking this question as well, because we mentioned earlier that life is an art form. We're all applying our crafts. For you, with everything that you've learned in the craft thus far, like you mentioned, 2 years is coming up. What are some of the takeaways that you've learned thus far being in the business that we can really apply to anybody who really wants to get into the business?
I think you have to ask a lot of questions. Ask a lot of questions, and ask those questions to a lot of different people, because there's a lot of different ways of doing things. There's not necessarily a right one way to do content. Some people do it this way, some people do it this way, So again, ask a lot of questions and just take in that information. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. And I'm not saying go on set and be a bitch or anything like that. But if something doesn't sound right, doesn't seem right, you've got questions, then ask the questions. It's okay to push back a little bit if there's something that you're not comfortable with. And if someone doesn't respect that, then, if it's on set, maybe that's not the right company to work for. And if it's that's going on between an email with another creator that you're trying to set something up for, maybe that's a sign you're not supposed to work with that creator. That's not going to be the right match for you. But really, listen to your own intuitions, and, also never be afraid, if you've got people you want to shoot content with, and you've looked on their page and you've seen that they've shot with other people, don't be afraid to reach out to those people and ask them how their experience was. Because just because they're on someone's on their page doesn't necessarily mean it was a great time. We all use the content, right? But I always encourage you to reach out to other models that a creator has worked with and just see, how that was. The other thing is, I'm just going to say it, and maybe it's going to get me fired. I don't know. Don't share a hotel room with your agent. Don't share a hotel room with your agent, ever. There's no reason to do that. That gets messy. If you've seen the news in the porn world, whether it's true or not true, just don't do it. Don't put yourself in a situation that could turn really ugly. And that is my biggest thing. Protect yourself and don't do something you're not comfortable with.
Whew. First and foremost, bluntly, beautifully, and eloquently said. I like your style, very strong with what you said. No, and I'm going to add on to that because I like how you put that, especially I know what you're referring to with what we see in the news and especially all fronts of media. I always say this: accommodation, comfortability, and boundaries are so key in anything in life.
It is. And I'll tell you, money comes and goes. Don't do something because of the money if you know that it's putting you in a compromised situation, or breaking your boundaries. Don't think about the money part of it. Think about your boundaries and what's good for you and what's not good for you. And that's how you should lead. Don't ever lead with, well, if I do this or whatever, I'm going to get paid this amount of money, so on and so forth, or I'm going to save this much money if I stay with my whatever. No, don't look at the money. Look at who you are and your values and your boundaries.
Whew. I gotta say, this is the empowerment that I love, and again, touches my heart and soul many of times in this interview. I gotta say, I like your outlook, and that mindset really does show, and everybody should adhere to it, because at the end of the day, too, we all know our worth, and we know who we are, and we all have our overall being and what we're about in our spirit. And I think if that doesn't align with our values, then I mean, sometimes you got to get out of the situations. Just as long as you're comfortable and you're accommodating yourself and you're on the right path, the journey's worth taking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and I will continue to empower women to make those changes or to stick up for themselves, things like that, because that's another thing that's not taught in this business. And I'll tell you, I think for me coming in my 40s was a huge blessing. And it set me up because I've already lived life. I've been through all the bullshit. I was in the military, all the things. I've seen all the good things that happen in life, all the bad things. I've been through, all the things. There's not much I haven't seen, but I know how to stand up for myself. I know how to not let people manipulate me. I know how to use my brains, and not let somebody try to change my thought process. I know how to use my words. And I think those are all really, really important things. And you can do all those things without coming off as being an asshole or coming off as a bitch or coming off as being a diva or anything like that. Again, I will continue to preach this, and I wish more people would preach this.
I gotta say that also adds, just not only just great qualities, noble and attractive qualities, but it's true. I think in today's day and age, we with every platform, even as a community, we have more of a voice. And if that voice could actually bring people in and gravitate, and people can really get inspired, as I always say, exist to inspire, then you're golden. And I think a lot of those words you just mentioned should be adhered to. And honestly, I got to say that makes you just the strong and confident woman that you are. And that is a beautiful thing to see, and everybody should really take in. So thank you for saying those amazing words, Miss Addison James. And
You're welcome. I hope that it was helpful to somebody.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's how you have to look at it. I even have it written on my TikTok page. I always say inspire through words and actions, because it's very true. You never know what somebody's going through. You have to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
And I got to say, with this one over here, AJ, rocking the social media front, where can we follow you on the socials? There's Instagram, there's Twitter, there's OnlyFans, many vids. The floor is yours. Where can we follow you at?
All right. So Twitter is Addyson, ADDYSON _James. And then my Instagram is official Addyson James. And my OnlyFans is Addyson _James. Oh, no, sorry, just Addyson James. Excuse me. My OnlyFans is just Addyson James.
No worries. The links will be in the description below. I don't mean to laugh. It's happened before in this show where some people would, all right, I'm going to say this right now because we've been very blunt and honest throughout this entire show. I'll say it. There's too many goddamn social medias out there, because there's so many different handles where it's like, okay, where do I have the underscore on this one? Where do I not?
I know. And it would be nice if we can, we all try to, if we can find a name that hasn't been taken and we can use the same one for all of them, that's fantastic. But it rarely does that happen, So you have to mix them up a little bit, and it can get a little confusing.
Isn't that like also with any adult site now, like you have to scan your face and everything now to get into it? And it's like you got to place your face right into the thing to make sure that you're an actual person. I mean, I understand it. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. But my God, how many times I got to place my face, the grill right here to the thing? You know what I'm saying? Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Whew, there's a lot, but I got to say, if it keeps everybody safe and it brings people together, then at the end of the day, that's a united front, and that's a great front right there at the end of the day, folks. So always be safe, always do it in a spectacular fashion, always rock it like Addyson James does, because I got to say, I've seen your social medias. We mentioned it throughout the show, but your imagery, man, whether what you're wearing right now, the great style and a profile and aesthetic here, whether you're clothed or not clothed, I got to say, man, you take a great photo.
Well, thank you. What's funny is when I was in the Navy, I remember being young and always thinking, oh, Playboy is such a beautiful magazine. The models are beautiful. The Playboy Playmates are beautiful. It's just a classy magazine, right? So I remember being in the Navy, and I was like, in my mind, I was like, I'm going to be in Playboy one day. Like, okay, yeah, right, Erin. But if I want to learn how to model, then I need to do photo shoots, right? right? So I was trying to do, so I've, since I was in my 20s, did photo shoots like every couple years for years on end, just so that I could get better. And it's finally paid off. Those years of not of being the awkward, not knowing how to pose and this and that, and just kind of learning on my own, but doing it because it was fun, and it was just kind of a great way to kind of watch as I've grown and changed over the years. I've now been able to put that to good use.
Okay, now you see, you made me what you say to the awkwardness, and then you're trying to get. I understand that completely. It reminds me of, oh God, I'm going to take everybody back now. But this is my nerdiness coming out. It's like when Model Behavior came out, and around 2000, it was the movie that had Maggie Lawson and Justin Timberlake was in it, and Kathy Lee Gifford played Maggie Lawson's mom. It's like when she's doing the shoot, right? Like, so she switches with it's her in a dual role. So she switches with the girl who's at high school, so she knows what it's like to live the normal high school life compared to her life. So her high school self switches with her modeling self. And it's like when she's doing the photo shoots and he's like, come on, baby, here, right here. Yeah. And then she's just looking like, how do you want me to pose? And it's literally like that. It's literally like
yes. That. Oh, that's funny.
It is. It's literally like that. But I think you become comfortable in your skin to where you are. I mean, you could start out looking like the girls who are going down the runway on the MTV Spring Breaks Cancun. And then here's NSYNC or whoever's playing the song in the background. You could rock it like that. And then you just continue to evolve and adapt even further as you get older and how you continue to evolve and get wiser. It's a beautiful thing to see the progression succession, man.
Absolutely. I agree. It's been fun. And, again, I didn't think this is where I was going to be. But I'm very happy to be here. I absolutely love what I do, and I love the adult industry. And, I'm going to keep doing this until I can't do it anymore.
And we are happy to see you do it. And folks, if you want to check out this interview, you can go to S&M Network Show, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can follow yours truly on Instagram, mlarkinmb or larkin_92, and the Twitter font, SM Show 1 or MCL92. Links will be in the description for both myself and my special guest tonight, Miss Addyson James. Do you have any final words to your fans and your peeps before we close this thing out?
I love my fans. I think they're amazing. I appreciate all of you so much. Don't be afraid, to interact with me on, Twitter and Instagram and things like that. If I do a poll and I'm asking questions about what kind of content you want to see or things like that, I'm truly looking for your opinion, because at the end of the day, I do this because I want my fans to be happy. And if it's something I'm able to do that I, haven't thought of, or if it's someone you want me to work with, I can't read minds. So send it my way and let me know, because I want to create those fantasies for you.
I will say this, and I will say this. We mentioned the subtleties, intricacies, and nuances before. It could be a certain little lip lick or whatever. I look at it like this with you as well. I think what I've noticed about your scenes, and I say this truthfully and honestly to you, Miss Addyson James, you got a hell of an eyes, man. You have the great gaze. You have the great sensuality behind the eyes. It really does show. That's another thing that's very keen. You have to have the right eye contact, the eye-to-eye contact that goes into it. I got to say, even that little bit helps. And I got to say, I really do notice that.
Well, thank you. Yay.
That's a big thing that goes into it. I think a lot of people don't even realize, like, that type of mindset. You're into it. You're locked in, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yeah. You've got to, and starting out, I had never worked with any of these people. So they're literally strangers, and you don't get a lot of time to get to know them. It's, you do your paperwork and then you start going over your script. And so you got to build that chemistry very quickly.
I will say this, chemistry, or whether it's calculus, it says you plus me equals us, to quote Together from back in 2000. You have certainly done a lot of great work, and are certainly a badass human being all in all. And I will say this before we close this out, folks, as I always say, my mindset and just everything that goes into this fine program that you're listening to now, beauty, strength, and dominance, the three key elements that make women the work of art that they are. And Miss Addyson James, I include you in those sentiments. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you for having me. Have a fabulous night.
You as well.